back to our discussion of the 1991 candidates match, which took place in Madras, India, between Vishy Anand and Alexei Dreev. Game one was won by uh, Vishy Anand, and after a tense game was played, Dreev blundered with Queen D6, and the game was pretty equal. Game two was drawn, so now we find ourselves in game three, where Alexei Dreev has the white pieces, Vishy Anand the black pieces. So d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, and b6. So Queen's Indian defense by Dreev. Knight c3, bishop b7, a3. This is the Petrosian variation. We like to play this early a3 to prevent the bishop from coming to b4. d5, c takes, knight takes, queen c2, knight takes c3, queen takes c3, h6, e3, and bishop d6, bishop b5 check, c6, bishop a4, castles and castles. So this position is pretty close to equal. White really doesn't have any big time advantage. Of course, he is looking to play the move e4 at some point, but it's black's move here, and with the pawn provoked to c6, white does have the opportunity to play e4. However, black plays c5, immediately putting pressure on the center and playing against that idea. So now d takes c5, and then Dreev played the powerful move b takes c5. Other options, of course, the amateur looking move, bishop takes f3, figuring just to try to double the pawns or something. But white would simply just play c takes d6, and then queen g5, g3, queen g4, and then e4, and there's no mate, right? But just a strong pass pawn in the center for white. The other idea is bishop takes c5 instead of b takes c5, but then rook d1. And I think after a move like queen e7, black is just fine here. But it's understandable. Dreev didn't want to give any time black at all and just simply played b takes c5. Rook d1. Another idea for white here is basically to play bishop c2, but then that could be met by bishop takes f3, g takes f3, and queen g5 check. If he had this idea of lining up on a d file with the queen and bishop. So instead he goes with the solid move rook d1, and now Dreev plays a natural looking continuation, and queen e7. The other choice, logical choice, that is simply queen c7. So where do you go? Do you go to e7 or c7? Again, the choice must be considered. Bishop takes f3, so let's look at it again. G takes, and now you have this move, bishop takes f2. What's the idea is that if king takes, then you have queen h4 check, and notice the bishop there on a4. Picking that up, and say b3, queen c6, bishop b2, threatening mate, and then just f6. And black is made out like a bandit. And black is perfectly fine there. So instead, after bishop takes h2, instead of capturing, slick move, king f1. So queen g5, f4, hitting the queen g1, king e2, queen g4 check, king e1, queen g1. It's possible to repeat. So either queen c7, bishop takes f3, um, queen c7 or bishop takes f3 possible here. Instead, queen e7 was played, which seems to me, normal and you know, uh, just as good as the others. Bishop c2, rook d8, and now white realizes e4 finally. Okay, now knight c6. And e5 is played. Now, some of you might be asking, well, why didn't Dreev play e5 himself here? Well, there's a little tactical shot here. Knight takes e5 because the rook on d8 would be captured at the end of the combination. For instance, like queen takes, bishop takes, and rook takes. And of course, if bishop takes, same thing, just simply queen, I'm sorry, not queen takes, whoops. Rook takes, queen gets off the protection of the e5 bishop and gets captured. Therefore, Dreev played knight c6. And now e5 from Anand, bishop c7. And now bishop f4. So Anand has this space advantage over here on the king side, and black just must be careful. And along with that space, black has this pawn on c5 that is pretty weak here. So black is holding, but white has chances here. Black doesn't really have any, winning chances per se, but he has, to keep an eye on some weaknesses. Queen f8, and now h4, bishop e6, rook d6, knight e7, rook a d1, and bishop d5 from Dreev. So he's holding things together, defending this king side, and keeping an eye on that c pawn. Knight h2. That knight is going straight to g4 in typical Roy Lopez fashion to assist the bishop on f4. Possible sacrifice on the h6 square if needed. Sometimes queen d3, creating that battering ram. It's all type of storm clouds hovering over the white king. c4, knight g4, and now bishop c5. Anand just simply trades rooks. Now knight e3 from Dreev. Knight g6. Bishop comes back. So Dreev is built up a nice position whereby black doesn't have many weaknesses, but he has enough for white to concentrate on. White has a nice space advantage on the king side, right? Nice king side attacking opportunities. I like how his minor pieces are posted. The bishop on c2, knight on e3, the other bishop on g3. Then he has his pawn on h4 that's threatening to go to h5 at any time to kick the knight out. He has a pawn on e5. So black has some defensive issues to deal with. And then he has this weak pawn on c4, which is under scrutiny. So white doesn't really have anything to worry about in this camp. So bishop takes e3, f takes e3. So there goes the bishop here. h5, now e4, driving the bishop away, and there goes the rook using that outpost. Queen takes a7. So Dreev just comes up a pawn. Knight f8, rook d4, rook takes c4, rook takes b2, queen d4, rook to a2, queen c3, and now we see Dreev's advantage has become more pronounced. Now he has a clean outside passer. and the bishop here and the space. So he simply just starts simplifying. And on move 46, Anand resigned. The game is over, and we can see the double attack on the f7 square. And there's just too many things for Anand to have to deal with in this position. So he decided to call it a day. So after game 3, the match was now tied up at 1 game apiece.